The first sign wasn't a key that wouldn't turn, but a silence that shouldn't have been there. At 38, I thought I'd understood what silence was. The quiet of a late night, the peace of an early morning. I was wrong. This was a new kind, an aggressive silence, a hollowed-out void where a life used to be. It was a Tuesday in early March, the air holding a damp chill that promised a rain it never delivered. I'd just come from my sister's house, having spent 2 nights on her couch, wearing the same damn sweater because the thought of choosing a new one felt like a betrayal. I was trying to remember how to breathe in a world where Clara didn't. The business we built from splintered floorboards and a shared dream, our small workshop, Phoenix Woods, was supposed to be my sanctuary. I drove there on autopilot, needing to be in the one place that still held the scent of her, sawdust, lemon oil, and the faint, sweet aroma of the Earl Grey tea she always drank. I could still remember us building the first workbench together 5 years ago. I'd wanted to use dovetail joints for strength. She'd insisted on box joints for their clean, simple beauty. We argued for an hour, laughing, our voices echoing in the cavernous, empty space that we vowed to fill with our creations. In the end, we used her box joints. She was always better at seeing the soul of a piece. I didn't expect to find my brother Mark inside. He was standing by that very workbench, not with a tool in his hand, but with a clipboard. Next to him, a man in a cheap, tight suit was running a hand over the surface of the large bandsaw, our most expensive piece of equipment. "The motor on this model is solid," the man said to Mark. "We could probably get $1,200 for it, easy." My key was still in my hand. I dropped it on the concrete floor, the clatter echoing unnaturally in the suddenly quiet room. "What's this?" I asked, my voice hoarse, barely a whisper. Mark turned, his expression not one of surprise or even guilt, but of mild annoyance, as if I'd walked in on a private meeting I had no business attending. "Alex, I was going to call you, give you a heads up." "A heads up about what?" I asked, my gaze fixed on the stranger. "Who is this guy?" "He's an appraiser, Alex," Mark said, his tone infuriatingly level, the one he always used when he thought I was being irrational. "We need to know what everything's worth. For the estate." The word estate felt like a slap. It was a cold, legal term for the life Clara and I had pieced together from wood and dreams, sweat and laughter. "This isn't an estate, Mark. This is our business. Our life." "It was," he corrected, his voice devoid of any warmth. "Clara's gone, Alex. You're in no state to run this place alone. You can barely decide what to wear. Selling is the logical next step. It's what's best for everyone." I stared at him, at the brother who was supposed to be my family. He was looking at our life's work as if it were just a collection of assets to be liquidated. Across the room, the appraiser peeled a numbered sticker from its roll and pressed it firmly onto the leg of Clara's favorite carving stool. I felt a tremor start in my hands, a rage so pure and cold it scared me. It felt like the only thing holding me upright. "Get out," I whispered, the words tight in my throat. "Alex, be reasonable." "I said, get out!" The roar that came out of me felt like it was from someone else. It shook the dust from the rafters. The appraiser, wide-eyed, grabbed his coat and practically fled, muttering, "I'll wait in the car." Mark, however, stood his ground, a martyr in a cashmere sweater. "You're being emotional. I'm the executor of her will, Alex. I'm handling the finances. Clara trusted me to make the hard decisions. This is my responsibility now. For a moment, the floor felt like it was tilting. He was right. When we'd set up the business, Clara had made Mark the executor. A fail-safe, she'd called him, because he was the practical one. I never thought I'd be on the other side of that practicality. I never thought it would be used as a weapon against me. He left, the door closing with a soft click behind him, and I sank onto a stool, the smell of sawdust suddenly suffocating. He hadn't just put a price tag on my grief, he had marked it for clearance. The next few days were a special kind of hell, a blur of condescending phone calls and sterile offices. Mark had frozen the joint business accounts, citing his executor duties. When I called him, he'd let it go to voicemail, only to text me later. Lawyer says we can only communicate through official channels now. I felt like a ghost in my own life, haunting the edges of a world that was being dismantled without my consent. I wandered through our empty house, picking up objects, a coffee mug, a book left open, expecting to feel her, but feeling only the profound, crushing weight of her absence. One afternoon, desperate to feel something real, I drove back to the workshop. A new, gleaming deadbolt stared back at me. He had locked me out. As I stood there, my forehead against the cold glass of the door, an old man, Mr. Harrison, one of our first customers, approached. "Alex, son," he said, his voice gentle. "I was so sorry to hear about Clara. She was a light. She once spent an hour helping me choose the right wood for a birdhouse for my grandson. An hour for a $10 piece of cedar. That was her. We'll all miss her. Will you be opening again soon?" The simple question struck me harder than any of Mark's legal threats. "I don't know, Mr. Harrison," I mumbled, shame burning my cheeks. "There are complications." He just nodded, squeezed my shoulder, and said, "Well, we'll be here when you sort them out." That small vote of confidence was the spark I needed. This wasn't just my fight. It was for her, for every customer who felt her light. That night, I found myself in her study. It was the one room Mark hadn't touched. Her books lined the shelves. Her notes were still pinned to a corkboard. And on her desk, her old laptop sat closed, covered in a fine layer of dust. She used it for everything: designs, emails, and her private journals. I opened it, the screen glowing to life, showing a picture of us on the coast, smiling into the wind. My heart ached. I clicked around aimlessly for an hour, finding nothing. Then I saw it, almost hidden in a folder of tax documents, a subfolder named The Long Game. It was password protected. My mind raced. I tried the obvious. Our anniversary, her birthday, nothing. I typed Phoenix Woods, the name of our dream, and even that was rejected. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, feeling foolish and desperate. Then it came to me, a shared secret from a world we built before this one. The first fantasy novel we ever read together, a worn-out paperback about a hidden, mythical city only the worthy could find. My hands shook as I typed its name, Eldoria. The folder opened. Inside wasn't a single document, but dozens. Scans of receipts, a detailed 5-year business plan she'd never shown me, and a series of dated text files. I opened the most recent one. It was a journal entry from 2 months before she died. My hands are shaking as I write this. Had another talk with Mark today. He thinks a spreadsheet can measure a soul. He'll never understand that the grain of the wood tells a story, and our job is just to listen. He said it was a financial drain and that we should cash out before the market turns. I told him no. This place is more than money. It's Alex's soul. It's my legacy. I worry if something happens to me, he'll try to take it from Alex. He'll call it logic, call it responsibility. But it's control. He's always needed to be in control. I'm attaching the audio file from our call, just in case. For Alex, he has to be protected. My breath hitched. I scrolled down and saw the audio file. Mark call 0114.mp3. With a trembling finger, I clicked play. Her voice filled the silent room, clear and strong, and then Mark's voice, condescending and dismissive. It was all there. Her refusal. His insistence. It wasn't a will, but it was her voice. It was her intent. It was everything. The next morning, I called a lawyer my friend had recommended, a woman named Sarah who specialized in small business disputes. When I met her in her small, sunlit office, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just played the recording. She listened, her face unreadable. When it was over, she looked at me and said, "This is his undoing." The meeting was held in Sarah's conference room a week later. I sat beside Sarah, my hands clenched under the table. Mark arrived with his own lawyer, looking confident, holding a thick file of financial reports. His lawyer, a slick man named Peterson, began, his voice smooth as varnish, talking about profit and loss, about depreciation, about Mark's solemn fiduciary duty to maximize the estate's value for all potential beneficiaries. Sarah let him finish his entire speech. Then, she calmly placed a small digital recorder on the polished table. "Mr. Peterson," she said, "your client speaks of his duty, but a primary duty of an executor is to honor the testator's intent. My client's wife, Clara, was a meticulous record keeper. We have dated journal entries and business plans outlining her explicit desire for Alex to retain full control of the business. And we also have this." She pressed play. Clara's voice filled the tense, air-conditioned room. Mark's face went from confident to ashen. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his polished facade cracking. The recording ended, and a heavy silence descended. "While not a formal codicil to the will," Sarah continued, her voice like ice, "this is a clear and powerful demonstration of the testator's intent. Any probate judge would see it as such. An attempt to go against these wishes could be interpreted as a breach of your fiduciary duty. A very public, very messy breach that would invite a great deal of legal scrutiny." Mark didn't speak. He just stared at the recorder as if it were a snake. "You were never going to win," I said, my voice quiet but steady, finally finding its footing. "You just wanted to break something she built. Because you couldn't." He finally looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't see a predator. I saw a small, bitter man. He stood up, muttered, "This meeting is over," to his lawyer, and walked out of the room. That night, with a new key in my hand, I went back to the workshop. The air was stale, still. I spent hours there, not just cleaning, but reclaiming. I touched every tool, ran my hand over every surface. I found the numbered sticker on Clara's stool and peeled it off slowly, rolling the sticky paper into a ball and tossing it in the trash. I swept the floors, organized the tools, and brewed a pot of the tea she loved, letting the aroma chase out the ghosts of appraisers and lawyers. The next morning, as the sun streamed through the dusty windows, I walked to the front door. I turned the old brass sign that hung there from closed to open. For a long time, nothing happened. The silence was different now. It was peaceful, expectant. Then, around noon, the bell above the door chimed. It was Mr. Harrison. He smiled, a kind, knowing smile. "I had a feeling you'd be open today," he said. "My granddaughter's birthday is next month. I was hoping you could build her a small bookshelf, just like the one Clara designed for my study." Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. "I'd be honored," I said, my voice thick with emotion. After he left, I pulled out Clara's 5-year plan. It was more than a business document. It was a map of her heart. The first entry was simple. Community cutting boards. Host a workshop. Bring people together. Share the joy. I picked up a beautiful piece of maple, felt the smooth, cool surface under my fingers, and made the first cut. The hum of the saw was a familiar song. As I worked, shaping the wood, I wasn't just grieving anymore. I was building, for her, for me, for the story that the wood still wanted to tell. And for the first time since she was gone, I felt the quiet, steady peace of getting back to work.